grim lines. A handsome man in his mid-20s, he was Fairbairn's son by a previous marriage. According to Speller, it had been Hamilton who insisted on summoning a detective from Scotland Yard. While Fairbairn had recognised Lucinda's name, however, he had been aghast. Nevertheless, although he could have refused to allow her into the mansion, he had not done so. He wanted the investigation to go forward, she thought, even at the cost of having such a notorious female in his house. She walked toward the body, bracing herself for the disturbing sensations that always accompanied an encounter with the dead. No amount of preparation could entirely dampen the disorienting sense of utter emptiness that swept over her when she looked down at the figure on the floor. Whoever and whatever Fairbairn had been while he was alive, that essence was gone. She knew that traces of evidence that might provide clues to the manner of his death still clung to the scene, however. Speller would certainly spot most of them. But if there was any indication of poison, it was her mission to detect it. The psychical residue of toxic substances remained not only on the body, but on anything the individual had touched in those last moments. There was often other, very unpleasant, and much more obvious evidence as well. In her experience, most people who died after ingesting poison became violently ill before expiring. There were always exceptions, of course. A long, slow, steady diet of arsenic did not usually produce such dramatic results at the end. But there was no indication that Lord Fairbairn had suffered from bouts of nausea before he died. His death could have been attributed to a stroke or a heart attack. Most families who moved in elevated circles, as the Fairbairns did, would have preferred to accept such a diagnosis and thereby avoid the publicity that inevitably attended a murder investigation. She wondered what had made Hamilton Fairbairn send a message to Scotland Yard. Clearly he had his suspicions. She concentrated for a moment on visual cues, but they told her little. The dead man's skin had turned a stark, ashen shade. His eyes were open, staring at nothing. His lips were parted in a last gasp. She noticed that he had been older than his wife by at least a couple of decades. That was not an unusual circumstance when a wealthy widower remarried. Very deliberately, she stripped off her thin leather gloves. It was not always necessary to touch the body, but direct physical contact made it easier to pick up nuances and faint traces of energy that she might not notice otherwise. There was another round of shocked gasps from Lady Fairbairn and Hannah Rathbone. Hamilton's mouth tightened. She knew that they had all seen the ring on her finger, the one the sensation press claimed she had used to conceal the poison that killed her fiancé. She leaned down and lightly brushed her fingertips across the dead man's forehead. Simultaneously, she opened her senses. At once, the atmosphere in the library altered in subtle ways. The scent that emanated from the large jar of potpourri swept over her in a heavy wave, a combination of dried geraniums, rose petals, cloves, orange peel, allspice, and violets. The colours of the roses in two tall, stately vases intensified dramatically, exhibiting strange hues for which there were no names. While the petals were still bright and velvety, the unmistakable reek of decay was clearly detectable. She had never understood why anyone would want to decorate a room with cut flowers. They might be beautiful for a short time, but they were, by definition, in the process of dying. As far as she was concerned, the only suitable place for them was in a graveyard. If one wished to preserve the potency of a plant or bloom or herb, one dried it, she thought, annoyed. The sad-looking